The Yakuza games, or more recently, Like a Dragon games, are a staple of Japanese gaming.
Releasing since 2005, they are a landmark in the handsome guys beating up dudes subgenre. Now, these games are loosely inspired on the real-life Yakuza gangs of Japan, known for having extremely intricate tattoos, ruthless politics, and ironclad codes binding them to their families. Being one not only demands your mind, but your whole being and dedication to the family. And these games aren't afraid to explore those deep topics. They show the ugly sides of crime, the harm it does to oneself and others, the disillusionment that power and money has on weak minds, and how innocent people are affected by the sins of man. These games contain heavy topics such as betrayal, death, trauma, and much more.
So, naturally, they're hilarious.
So, to begin, while it is true that these games are everything I mentioned previously, it's equally true that they're just as hilarious, if not more so than serious at sometimes. Like, there's a whole game in the franchise dedicated to being a pirate spinoff. And no, I'm not joking. Now, you may be questioning how and why this is possible. How can a game that has characters dealing with gang violence and mass murder schemes also contain goofy karaoke, minigames about DMing girls online, and bowling? Now, they say that any good writer or director should start with comedy, then branch off into drama. And I believe that the Yakuza games are able to reach this equilibrium due to three massive principles that influence their comedy, which makes it so natural and effective. Those being juxtaposition, seriousness, and expectation. So, to begin, a lot of comedy within the Yakuza games comes from the massive tonal changes that completely throw you for a loop. It may not always be blatant or in your face, but it can transition in the blink of an eye, often coming from when you transition from story back into gameplay. The direct shift from drama into the main gameplay loop of beating up dudes on the street is pretty quick and can naturally lead to some pretty funny moments. In addition to that, since the game has quirky side quests, activities for you to do, and just generally funny NPCs, the sudden shift both in and out of intense drama can give you a sense of whiplash as you have to adjust to the extremities. And even when it's not as immediate, the fact that such a spectrum even exists still allows for some comedic moments as we drastically shift from style to style. For example, you can have characters sing karaoke, something that I'm sure you're very familiar with, and the fact that this is in the same game as this? I mean, the jokes just write themselves. Alongside other goofy minigames, they exist in this weird middle ground of complete absurdity that still manages to expand the world of the game while also contributing to the stories greatly. And that brings me to my next point. The game takes everything it presents to the player seriously. No matter the situation, the game will give them the same level of respect. So when your character is doing online dating, taking a test about Sega characters, playing sports, or doing Aloha tours, the game will present them as serious within the reality of the world, which is just hilarious. This even shows with some of the encounters that you'll have. For example, these guys. Boys, I'm just trying to get some coconuts. Let me. What the hell? What the hell's asshole? Yeah. As you saw from my reaction, there's just no explanation because these guys are just another part of the world. Or, for another example, Kasuga passes out and wakes up on an island in the middle of Hawaii and gets access to a Stardew Valley Animal Crossing style resort building minigame. And the fact that the game just treats this as both realistic and plausible within the game world kinda desensitizes you to it, yet they still manage to find ways to subvert your expectations every single time. For example, I guess Kasuga has some sort of brain damage, because when he gets into fights, he sees his enemies transform into video game beastly enemy counterparts, despite the fact that he doesn't even play video games. And to add on to this, in-game, he's apparently so charismatic that it even spreads like an infection to Kiryu, and just nobody questions it. Finally, the last thing I want to discuss is how the majority of the comedy comes from the lack of expectations, or rather, the constant betrayal of your expectations, but in a good way. For example, the baby side quest in Kiwami 2. Even when you expect the games to stick to a specific style of comedy, it still manages to surprise you. Well, basically anything that Majima does. He'll hide in just about anywhere, and use his head in some pretty unconventional ways. And you might be thinking, okay, so they just had the characters act in some silly situations, big whoop. But no, Because tell me why a chicken is the leader of my business, or the fact that you have a pet lobster, or that you fight a bear, and that's not even mentioning the heat actions. You're just bombarded with things you never even thought of, and have to wonder what crack they were smoking making this game, yet it all still works. I think going back to the karaoke is a perfect trifecta between all 3 points. It serves as a minigame for players to master, while also being paired with hilarious cinematics, and also diegetically exists within the game world as an activity that the characters enjoy to do, making it both plausible and hilarious at the same time. So to conclude, the Yakuza games manage to perfectly balance both comedy and moody moments simultaneously because they all contribute to fleshing out the game world, instead of distracting from it, allowing both to coexist peacefully within the franchise. Anyways, those are the reasons alongside some specific examples of why the Yakuza games are so funny in my opinion. By blending both seriousness and absurdity, they manage to find a unique place to sit in your heart, and that's what cements them as some of the best games still released today.
So that's all I really got to say. Thanks for stopping by the pond. It's Ukoi here, and I'm out.